It's loading now. Loading now. Yep, we're live. Awesome. All right. Welcome everybody to this information session workshop on the 25th of November at 4:35 p.m. Apologies. We've got a number of apologies today. We don't have to do a. I've got them. We don't need to do a formal. Yeah, okay, we don't need to do the formal movement, etc. So we've got our apologies. There's been a few today due to some other things popping up. And then the first item we have on the agenda is the local alcohol policy process and progress. Team, would you like to come take a seat?
The irony.
Philip, Claire, Amy and Wade, welcome.
I'm Ron. I'm Wade's full replacement. We've got a hearing today.
Kia ora everybody, thank you for having us attend this afternoon as an attachment to your workshop later on. I'm Claire Fletcher, I'm the Senior Engagement Advisor working on the project. With me today is Philip Henderson, Policy Analyst, Amy Martin, our Research Analyst, and Ron stepping in for Wade as our Legal Counsel for the local alcohol policy. Today, thank you Aidan for driving the slides for us. The purpose of coming to see you today is to check in and let you know the process and the progress that we've made to date on the development of a local alcohol policy, share with you what can and can't be included and who's involved, and at a high level what the Life in Christchurch survey results told us about your board area rather than just at a citywide level. We'll then have a bit of time to answer questions and gather any feedback that you might have right now. So to start us off, I'm going to throw to Philip, who's going to talk to this next slide about what a local alcohol policy is.
Okay, hello. A local alcohol policy then. A council can choose to have a local alcohol policy to provide direction to the District Licensing Committee, which is the body that issues issues licences or may issue renewals or refuse to issue licences for alcohol in the district. The local alcohol policy provides direction to that committee on how alcohol should be sold and supplied in the district. Councils don't have to have a local alcohol policy, but where they do have one, the DLC must consider it when it is making decisions. The Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act 2012 sets out what can and can't be included in local alcohol policy. Actually, if we just go back to that slide, thank you. An LAP may include policies on where licensed premises can be located. So that can be in relation to broad areas, or that can be in relation to proximity of a licensed premises to other licensed premises or to certain types of facility. The LAP can also set direction, policy direction to the DLC on whether any new licenses or types of licenses can be issued in the district. That's full stop, or it could be any part or parts of the district. An LAP can also, through an LAP, the council can issue direction to the District Licensing Committee to restrict or extend the maximum trading hours set out in the Act for a licence, and it can also set out policy direction on the type of conditions that licences or types of licences should be subject to. Those can be one-way door conditions, for example, where a person may go into a venue, but once they've left, they can't then return after a certain point. Or there can also be discretionary conditions, which can be more detailed, and there are examples of those in other LAPs that include requirements to have CCTV in operation, for example, in an area. Yes, we can move to the next slide now. What an LAP isn't, though, is a general alcohol policy. So it can't include policies on anything that does not relate directly to alcohol licensing. To that extent, it can't be a substitute for something that is a more general alcohol harm reduction strategy or plan. We can move to the next slide, please. The development of a local alcohol policy is a process that's set out in the Act, and the Act requires that we follow certain steps in putting together a draft local alcohol policy, and then how we consult on that when we have the draft. The Act requires us to consult certain parties, so that's police, medical officer of health, and the licensing inspectors in the district, and to consult them, and also to obtain and to consider certain information about the district, including the health of its residents and the nature and the severity of alcohol-related issues arising in the district. Those are things we have to take into consideration in preparing the draft policy. Once a draft policy is in place, the council must consult on it using the special consultative procedure. And that's a process probably familiar with, set out in the Local Government Act. The purpose of that is to give the community an opportunity to have their say on the draft policy. We are, in addition to that, carrying out engagement with community boards and stakeholders in the community to help inform our understanding of the issues and the options that we are looking at before we get to the point where we have a draft LAP to circulate for consultation. Important point to make is we need to be robust about ensuring that we don't or we're not perceived to be predetermining outcomes. We are trying to gather, well, we've been gathering that information, as Claire would explain, and also Amy will touch on that as well. We are still taking in information and still taking in views to get a sense of what the LAP, what the problem is that we're looking to address, and also how an LAP might do that. So we're not able at this point to say a draft LAP or a final LAP would contain X, Y, and Z, because we're still going through that important process.
You want to jump slides in? Thank you. So as you can see here, we started the process in June, and it started with using the Life in Christchurch survey to gather perceptions from our community members. There are over 5,000 community members that participated in that survey, which was based on neighbourhoods, and Amy will talk much more in depth about that in a moment. We've also met with council last week. We asked them to make a decision, which I'll talk about shortly. And we've also been meeting with key stakeholder groups who represent different licence types, or our statutory stakeholders as well, so Police and Health New Zealand. We've also requested the statutory data from them, which is prescribed in the Sales Control Act, from Police and Te Whatu Ora or Health New Zealand, which we've now received and we're currently analysing, and then overlaying that into the perception data from the community's Life in Christchurch survey results to get a really good understanding of what are the actual issues versus the perception of the issues. If we flick to the next slide, Aidan, thank you. There are 3 phases of engagement that we're aiming to focus on if we get to having a local alcohol policy to consult on. The first phase is at the moment, which coming to see you is one of them, the Life in Christchurch survey and meeting with key stakeholders. Early next year, we intend to ask the wider community to participate in sharing their thoughts around the issues and the options that get put forward in our reporting to council. We expect to report into council early next year with a collated report of what we've found through the research. And then if the councillors approve us going forth with a draft policy, then we would go through a special consultative process for 4 weeks around about mid-year to find out the appetite for those suggested policies and how it would work. If you flip to the next slide, Aidan. Thank you. So this is the timeline that we put forward in the 20th of November council briefing. for a decision on. We asked the council to make two decisions. One was timeline to complete, because we're all beginning to become aware there is an election cycle next year, and this is a very big piece of work. So we wanted them to take into consideration the pros and cons of achieving it before an election or pausing and completing after an election. At the meeting, they determined to make a decision when we report in next with the issues and options. So we'll understand then what our timeline to achieve it is. We did recommend as staff that we could achieve it before the elections and achieve it by July. The other decision we asked them to make was who is in the hearings panel. Obviously, this is a high significance piece of work that affects the whole city and Banks Peninsula potentially. With a lot of feeling on different ends of the spectrum about alcohol harm and what council can do to support reduction in alcohol harm. As a result, the staff recommended a whole of council hearings panel, and that was agreed to by council last week. So anyone who has a conflict of interest would be respectfully stepped down from that, because they probably have a license or something or affiliation. But other than that, everyone else would be involved in the hearings panel if we get there. You just go to the next slide, Aidan. Thank you. So it's really important to point out your role as a community board in the process, as it's a whole of city piece of work. We really need you to be the local knowledge. We need you to promote the opportunities for the community to participate as and when they arise. If it's appropriate in the next stage, based upon what we find out with the issues and options, I'm quite keen to have community boards host events for their community groups in the area to get an understanding of their thoughts around those issues and those options. So if that's something I would love for you to ponder as a community board, if you would be interested in doing that, and let us know. Nods in the room. Yeah, I'll let you check in with your colleagues that aren't here today as well, though. And then obviously we really do need you to submit feedback as well as the board, if we get to the point that we do have a draft policy to consult on. I'm now going to hand over to Amy, who's going to walk you through the results for this board area from the Life in Christchurch survey.
So I'm going to whiz through this fairly quickly. We did do a presentation to council on the 5th of November about the whole of city results. So if you're interested in those, they're available in the briefing papers from them. So we ran Life in Christchurch in August and September, and we went out with a survey generally about neighbourhoods. So tell us about issues and topics to do with your neighbourhood. We got quite a good response to that. So over 5,000 responses, as Claire said. And we're still working through the analysis of that. So as I go through, you'll notice that there's not very many firm numbers in here, and that's because we're still finalising the analysis, and it's also going out for an external peer review before it gets published. So we're still working through that. The reason we ran it in the Life in Christchurch survey is we wanted to get a balanced view from the community. So we didn't just want to go out and say, hey, here's a survey about alcohol, tell us what you think. It was, tell us what you think in the context of the environment that you live in and the impacts that it has on it. So that was why we made that decision. Next one, please, Aidan. This is the only numbers you will see today, and it gives you a bit of a breakdown around where the respondents came from. So you can see that there was quite a good split across all of the community boards. Banks Peninsula is a little bit lower, as you'd expect, but it's still a really good proportion of their overall population. And the next one. So into some of the findings, and just bear in mind that these are just for your board area, they're not the citywide responses. So generally, there was agreement from the respondents who live in this board area that their local communities should have more say regarding licensed premises in their local neighbourhoods. Half of respondents from this board area told us that they think alcohol is too easy to get a hold of in Christchurch, and that more harm occurs in areas where there are more places to purchase alcohol. Just over a third agreed that the current rules, regulations and restrictions are adequate for addressing alcohol-related harm. And it's worth noting that those from the Fendalton and Harewood wards were statistically more likely to report that the current rules are adequate. So a little bit of variance there across the three wards that make up the board. Next one. As we progress through the survey, we asked them a series of questions around where they think harm happens. And you can see in that green box on the left there, all of the places that we asked them about. So generally, respondents agreed that to some degree, alcohol-related harm occurs in each of the locations that we surveyed. However, the level of harm varies significantly across each of the locations. Those who live in the Waimāero ward area tended to report harm occurring to a lesser degree in each of the locations surveyed than the wider city. And just under a third think that a lot of harm occurs in private residences, so places where alcohol is largely unregulated in terms of consumption. Just under half think that a moderate amount of harm occurs in pubs, bars and nightclubs, and just over half think that a moderate or a little harm occurs at social and sports clubs. And then just around 2/3 think that a moderate or a little harm occurs in public spaces and at public events. So relatively less than some of the other areas. The majority told us that they think little or no harm occurs at restaurants and cafes, and that's largely consistent with the wider city results. And on to the next one. So the results that are in these tables that I'm about to present are from a question that tested how often residents think drinking causes or contributes to a range of problems in their local neighbourhoods. It's a bit small, but I'll run through it quickly. These tables are actually, and you'll notice there's a lot of arrows in there from statistical testing that looked at the frequency at which respondents reported the issues occur in their neighbourhood compared to all other wards across the city. The more arrows that are next to something, the stronger the statistical relationship. So Fendalton. Respondents from the Fendalton ward were statistically less likely to report that most of the issues occur frequently in their neighbourhood. So you can see that there's a lot of red arrows on the left there. They were statistically more likely, though, to tell us that vomiting and public urination and property damage happen occasionally. Next one, I'm sorry. In terms of Harewood, very similar. Respondents from the Harewood ward were statistically less likely to report that most of the issues occur frequently or occasionally in their local neighbourhoods. And they were statistically more likely to report that several of them are never an issue in their neighbourhoods. So you can see a lot of the green arrows on the right there. Then Waimairi was a little bit different, and there were fewer statistical relationships overall. So generally they were much more, they didn't sway one way or the other, much more flat. Respondents were statistically more likely, though, to report that property damage is rarely an issue caused by alcohol in their neighbourhood, and statistically less likely to report that non-violent crime is never an issue. Licensed premises. So we asked them about the respondents about the number of licensed premises in their neighbourhood, and the feedback from this board area suggests that the current number of licensed premises in the neighbourhoods are right at the moment, though just under a third indicated that they think there are too many off licenses. Generally, feedback told us that respondents from this board don't want to see more licensed premises in their neighbourhood, with the exception of restaurants and cafes where more than half neither agreed nor disagreed. So when they said that there's about the right number, we asked a follow-up question that said, do you want any more? And that's where that data came from. 3/4 of respondents told us that bottle stores should have restrictions on how close they are to community facilities. So that's starting to get into what Philip was talking about earlier. And more than 2/3 thought that the same restrictions should apply to pubs, bars and nightclubs. The facilities, we asked them which facilities, if they said they'd like to see restrictions, and the ones that they identified were early childhood education centres, primary and secondary schools, medical and rehab facilities and hospitals, and parks, playgrounds and sports facilities. And it's worth noting that those have been consistent across every single board. And finally, hours of licensed premises. So we asked them about the number and then we asked them about the hours. And when we were asking about the hours, we were looking at the maximum possible operating hours. So respondents from this board were divided on whether the opening hours of licensed premises are too long or about right. 9 and 10 fell into one of those two categories, though, with very few saying that they were too short. The majority of respondents told us that the hours for social and sports clubs and small grocery stores are too long, though, so a bit of an outlier there. Many of the comments, and this is consistent with the citywide results as well, indicated concern about the time licensed premises can begin selling alcohol in the morning, telling us that they think it's too early. And then there was also a little bit of concern about the overall proportion of the day that alcohol is available for purchase within those maximum operating hours. That's like in Christchurch.
So our next steps is we'll continue to analyse the data and report on it and have it independently reviewed. We'll bring together the evidence base for the key issues and options report and report back to council on that early next year. Once they've given us license to, after that, we'll begin community engagement on those issues and options. Hopefully beginning of the year, or just after we've seen them. That brings us to the end of our presentation. And we've now got a bit of time for questions and any feedback that you might have today around alcohol access and harm in the board area.
Questions? I got one to start with. You guys are chewing on it. So this is what people think. How, and this is one of the things where you're getting the information from the police one on what's actually happening and then comparing the two.
So we're going through a big process at the moment of pulling together both this data and a lot of quantitative data around it as well. And in the next week or so, we're going to go through the process of wrapping it all up and bringing it together and going, actually, what does this mean? So I guess this is your community perceptions. But there is a lot of other data that we're working through at the moment. I think we're up to about 155 pages of report. There's a lot out there. So
might be more for you, Claire, but do you have numbers and by board area of the numbers of licensed and off-licensed premises?
We do have it.
Are we low? I've kind of always got the feeling there aren't that many, but then I think Maryville's got quite a few. But I just don't feel that we have as many as some other board areas.
Density.
yeah, and
Amy,
that's something
explain
that's in the report, and I just can't remember off the top of my head, but it's definitely, that's one of those things that's in that research report. So we've got all
But
the,
it didn't jump out at you as being much lower.
not that I can remember, but don't quote me on that. There's a lot of data. Yeah, and it's all becoming a bit
And
scrambled.
if you think about Harewood, why we don't have a dearth, do we?
Right, not the shortage or excess.
No, we don't have an excess. Like there's,
No,
there doesn't seem to be that many.
no, I crossed my mind a couple of locations where
It would be Fendalton that's got Maryvale.
And I think if you remember what I said at the start around Fendalton and Harewood actually reporting that they think the rules are currently adequate, maybe that's reflective of
Of the levels of
the numbers. Yeah. So
access and therefore
Because again,
related harm.
Fendalton and Maryvale would all be on licenses. There's not very many off licenses in those areas.
So, yeah, that is in that report, and it looks at density and it looks at deprivation and it looks in the overlays of all of that.
So there was no massive difference between one area and the other, like massive in some areas.
Can't remember. There's a lot of numbers in that report, and we're still chunking through it.
Probably something to take into consideration moving forward is license types, because we're not just talking about off-licensed traditional bottle store and on-licensed traditional nightclub, pub or cafe. We're also talking about club licenses, so sports clubs, they have alcohol licenses. We're talking about working men's clubs, we're talking about supermarkets as well. So there's actually several different classes of license that could be affected by a local alcohol policy. So though you might feel that you're about the right number of off licenses, though there's other license types that may be playing within your area as well.
There's quite a few. If you think about that as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Might pull out those.
But the change in
In there.
there'll be the fluctuation wouldn't be skyrocketing the number of clubs that are selling booze. It's not a trend happening. Sports club numbers are generally declining, not going the other way. Mary?
So it was a stat that's, I'm pretty sure it's still not recorded. I asked for 5 years in a row at Health Board, but is ACC. So if you go to A&E tonight and you're getting 20 stitches because you fell off a ladder, they don't ask you if you're drinking.
No.
And it's a really, really odd. And I think through the process as a council, we should be at least writing to ACC saying, can this be recorded? Because that would be the best data you could get, because police only go to so many incidents and they don't breathalyze you at a domestic either. They can assume when there's Woodstocks all over the front lawn and the guy's rolling drunk that's taking a swing at everyone that he's drunk. But it's the people that can hide it pretty well, your functional alcoholics that commit domestic violence too that are a problem. But so those real stats would be really helpful.
We're trying to get as much of that as we can. We've got what we can from health.
They just don't record it.
No, from what I understand, the problem is that the data just doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
One thing we are trying to track down at the moment, and I don't know if we're going to be able to get it yet, is some St John data as well.
Oh, yes.
There's recorded on health, just because simply they don't get transported, they get dealt with, and
Yeah.
they can go on.
It'd be interesting to see if they alcohol data or they can assume someone's impaired. You don't know, again, whether it's alcohol or drugs. And then they can be picking them up. They'll have a list of their incidents where the staff are affected, but I don't know if they'll have, you know, you're getting your third heart attack this year and they don't go, well, have you been drinking, Aaron? No.
I would imagine not, but
No.
yeah, we're going to see what we can get from them. If anything, we might not get anything, but we're definitely asking.
It's a
those
gaping
questions.
hole.
It is, and as we've been going through the report, we've been kind of going, where are the holes? What are we missing? And can we fill them? And some of them we just can't.
Well, ACC is the biggest, and the reason I asked for it is that I always thought that there should be an ACC levy on alcohol. Would make the most sense. Find out the harm. If the harm's $1 billion a year, then you add $1 billion to alcohol and ACC. I mean, it might be 10 million, whatever the number is. You just apply it, divide it, and then target it, and it would seem fair on other people that are paying a huge amount of ACC who don't drink and do dumb shit.
It's like the ACC, they did the work on the motorbike versus car accidents and the costs of those, and then when they did that big change in the levies.
So that was fact-based. We haven't done it for alcohol, which is just odd.
Don't ask questions you don't want answers to, Aaron.
Well, I did want answers to and asked it multiple years.
Another question from me, in terms of the stakeholders, the interested parties / stakeholders that are already being engaged with, can we get a list of who those are? Because if we see that list, there might be some that we're aware of that prompt us to go, oh, what about these guys? Or are we already past that point?
I think we're past that point. It is, no, I'll rephrase that. There are key stakeholder groups that we know represent license types.
Yeah.
And there are our statutory stakeholders
Yeah,
that
so
we.
not those ones, but
The other ones, yeah, we have a database of over 500 who represent organisations. I think it's almost up to 600.
do you know if Students for Sensible Drug Policy is on that list?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember that name, but I will go back and check.
Yeah, if we could find out. I just know some people involved with that and they're very
What we can
interested
do
in.
probably in the new year is I'll get in touch with the board team here with the list and say who's missing.
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
Community watch are really good eyes and ears in our areas as well.
Yes.
So we get some pretty good updates from them each year on various activities.
So we've also got a web page at the moment, ccc.govt.nz/local alcohol policy, and on there is a sign up form. So anybody that's interested who wants to be on our stakeholder list, you can just tell them to go and sign up as well, and that will ensure that they go on the list for getting all of our updates. And that's kind of a catch-all in case we miss anyone. Just share it with your networks if you would like, and let them know they can sign up as many people as they like. We'll direct email them updates as we do the rest of the stakeholders.
Awesome. Any other questions from anyone else on that?
So just one on security. Can a local alcohol policy direct all licensed premises to have cameras?
No.
And especially on car parks will be really good as well, because going forward, the police can build really good cases at times when you've got the evidence of them coming in, number plate recognition, and then you drive out.
No, we can't, but
So the policy can't direct that?
no, but even if you did, you still have to have signs up.
Yeah.
Confirming to people that they are,
Yeah.
that they do exist.
Under surveillance?
Yeah. Because of privacy issues.
Yeah. That's right.
Right. Awesome, guys. Thanks very much.
Thank you for having us.
What about the other
Next up is community parks. Hey, Brody. Thanks for coming along.
Thank you.
Floor is yours.
Enjoy this little intimate setting today.
It is. We're a little bit light today.
It's okay. It's all right. Yeah, so it's that time of the year again where I go around doing the capital program rolling renewals for parks. So this is if you flick to that next slide, what we have for our capital program for rolling renewals is green assets, hard assets, playground renewals, and some of our standalone projects that are a part of a renewal package, but they're larger, so they have their own individual standalone package. So hard surface renewals, just so you're aware, is all of our pathways, car parks, pretty self-explanatory. So rolling renewals, what they are is we replace all our assets when they reach the end of their life, or the end of their useful life, really, just to ensure that everything stays in an acceptable condition. They can include some major refurbishments as well, or just even really small component replacements to ensure that that asset is at an acceptable level so that we meet our service level agreements. So we pop to the next one there. So how do we determine? We use our asset condition database. The program that we use is really a living document. It's a live document. It's continuously being assessed and reprioritised. So some of our assets, they degrade a little bit quicker than expected, and sometimes they don't. They actually hold on a bit longer. So we're constantly looking at that program. And yeah, like I said, there's some of the information that we have in our asset database isn't always super correct as well. So we often rely on our rangers. And now that we've gone to in-house maintenance, we also take that information from our gardening staff as well. So if you pop to the next slide. So this is just a really brief example of what we sort of do. So on the left-hand side there, garden bed with a few missing plants in it. On the right-hand side, we come through and we just infill plant. So in the next few years, that'll fill up and then we have a nice new garden bed. If you flip to the next one, there's just another example. So again, dead plants, gaps, looking a bit sad. So we come through and we just do a mulch, remove all the dead material, any dead plants, and replant. So those are just a couple of examples of green asset renewal. Hard surface renewal is pretty explanatory. We go and we rip up the path and we lay a new one down. And play space renewals as well, same sort of thing. We remove those components that are poor, or the entire playground if needed, and then we come through and we replace it. So if you flick on through to the next slide. No, there's none. Cool. So if you bring up the spreadsheet that's attached to the cover sheet.
Give me one moment.
So that just, what we'll bring up now is just a list of all your candidates for FY25, a current financial year, FY26, 27 and 28. So what we're going to be looking at, some of the feedback we're seeking really is, does that fit, does it, from the information that you have with your communities, does that sit okay with you? Is there any candidates that you know that are sitting in preferably FY27 and 28 that you believe could be brought forward because you've got a community who's really passionate about maybe their gardens in that area and they don't think they're meeting the mark? We can bring those forward. One thing we do have to be mindful of is anything that we bring forward, we have to pop something back out. So something has to be deprioritised if we're going to prioritise one of these candidates over the next. So, sorry, put you on the spot here. Right, so the start at the top there, we've got our playing rec. Oh, already had a road bump, have we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blind spot.
You know what? I saw that. I thought,
It's a renewal.
should I put it in there?
Renewal?
It's a renewal.
Okay.
I'm not knocking down the whole structure, don't worry.
Yeah, that was.
I knew that was
It
gonna,
won't be lamified?
I'm trying my absolute hardest to not let that happen.
Okay, because it's a good,
There's nothing wrong with the way it is now.
yeah, exactly. And
Take away the elephant.
no, that'll
Plans to remove.
just,
Career limit, that's a lot.
We actually, yeah, we
The other
actually
one's-
renewed that a few years ago.
yeah,
to try-
I gave it a task.
Yeah.
So in the slide on the other side, that's not getting a review or anything?
One of the planners came and spoke to me about that about 12 months ago. because it was picked up in an audit.
Yes, of course it would be.
Yeah,
It's a great slide.
it's a great
Great
slide.
slide.
Now,
So,
the
yeah,
One of the best.
only thing
the best.
that we've said could be looked at if maybe there were sides.
Sides, yeah. right,
Not
yeah.
taking the picture away, because it's nice and fast and kids
Yeah.
love a bit of.
You mean sides at the bottom?
Yeah,
Does it need them?
maybe.
Well, yeah,
I've never seen a kid go,
I've never seen a kid go sideways.
Mm.
and I spend a lot of time down there.
I've spent a few hours there.
That's good. There's a kid, my grandparents used to live down the road and spend a lot of time. I know. They're trying to keep the fun, trust me.
Okay, yeah, because the thing is, what you don't want to do is, well, for us is trigger, go, oh, yeah, do up our park, and then we go along to the opening, it's like all the good stuff's
Yeah,
gone.
yeah,
And all the lamified
Would be out.
would be out.
yeah.
I don't say that. I didn't talk about that.
No, it's not. You should see how many kids love Thompson.
Yeah.
You know, we would,
Oh, cool.
we're well aware of Bishopdale Park and the play elements that are there, and you know,
Grandfathered in.
Grandfathered in.
we can accept, you know, there is a certain amount of risk that we can accept as well, as long as it's acceptable risk. No, we don't have to go and, like you say, lamify everything.
None of us have ever received a complaint and said, oh, my kid's got no teeth now because they went on that.
No one.
Yeah. Teeth I can accept, but because I lost mine on the.
Big, it's 2 sets. You got 2 sets.
Yeah, and I didn't complain, because I didn't want the hydro slide taken away, but the, no, we don't. Okay, it's all good. So that's
Yeah.
just a renewal.
Yeah, yeah.
Sweet.
If anything was suggested to do anything to the Flying Fox, we'll be putting a very critical eye
Because if
over it.
anything, you almost want it quicker, not same pitch, but just tighten.
When the gear gets a little bit.
Yeah, it gets
on
high.
occasion, something that starts slowing down a bit, which it's
Yeah,
had it.
Tighten them for the
a little.
every now and then, yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they get, all our Flying Foxes get assessed by independent guy.
Flying Fox expert.
He's like the only New Zealand Flying Fox expert, so that everything gets
What a niche.
There'd be many left in Christchurch now, though.
Still, we have to fly them in from the North Island, yeah, there's a.
You go out at
Everyone taken away.
Spencer Park's got like 5.
Yeah, I took myself out on that one.
Yeah, there's one, no, sorry, 3, not 5, but there's 3, there's 3 at Spencer Park.
There's one at Yellowhurst somewhere out there too.
Great. Cool.
Yep, so if you've got any feedback
Yes.
on any others, don't feel like you have to put it now on the spot. Collate it and send it through. If you,
So it's a big picture.
When do you need it by? Sorry, when would be?
well, if we're looking at FY 27 and 28, there's no major rush. If you want something to be moved in FY 26, our planning is already starting.
Okay,
So
so if we want something brought forward into FY 26,
Yes.
let you know as soon as
Possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Things like green asset renewal by January,
Mhm.
ideally, so we can add it to our scoping, which is carried out a year in advance. So that would be the ideal cut-off for then. Hard surfaces, again, FY 26 by end of the beginning of next year. The only one I'd say is play item renewals and some of those standalone projects, the individual ones. It's going to be hard for us to bring anything into FY 26, just because there's a lot more scoping, community engagement, planning that has to go, that sort of accompanies those projects associated with them. So we need a bit more time for some of the larger scale ones, but those smaller ones, we'll do our best to accommodate.
There's quite a lot on the green asset ring.
Yeah. So green asset renewal, we didn't actually get, the reason for that is we didn't actually achieve as much as what we would have this last planting season. That's really, because we've got our new gardening crew, so we're doing everything in-house now. We were probably a little ambitious as to what they could achieve, because they're so new and getting up to speed and familiar with the sites. So we are going to focus on those community board areas that didn't get as much achieved this coming financial year, so that we can make some headway on that program. Harewood has quite a lot.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, Harewood's got a lot of parks.
It does.
Yeah.
So a question on parks going forward, because I live near the crematorium.
Yeah,
We don't have playgrounds in our area, so there's not one
okay.
that's within walking distance. So no families that live in that area. So there's nothing near Willowbank.
Just come jump the motorway and go to Rotokato.
Yeah, there's no playground.
No.
You got a lake. So, but just saying. that-
Okay, that is interesting. So the play spaces network plan that's being worked on at the moment, we'll pick that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so everyone should be really within walking distance, at least 500 meters.
Yeah, so
That's
we're
generally the
2 or
threshold.
3K.
Yeah, so that would be picked up in that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then, not saying I need one for mine, because my kids will be too old time to get it in. And then the other one is, it's a big picture thing, because we've got a lot of parks in Christchurch, over 1,000, it's like
Yeah.
1,200 or something,
Yeah.
parks and reserves and blah, blah. Can we get rid of some? In the sense that, so my thought was, take parks like your little pocket parks and that just probably annoy you more than bring you joy. And we just plant them into native bush. So we go, okay, we're going to take that one there and that neighbourhood, that one, and just have we walkway through the middle, gravel walkway, all native bush. So you start getting these pockets of bush through the city that become a lot lower maintenance for you. And if you are
I'm
keen,
going to clip this and send it to Sarah.
yeah, name one in our ward in Harewood. And then Jason and I will do all the interaction with the local community, because if you go, oh, there's that little one there, it's just a literal waste of space.
Yeah.
We will engage the community, get the buy-in or not, because they might go, oh, no, we love that little piece of lawn. So but if you've got one, I'd be keen to experiment before we take it to the full council and start doing it all over the city, but try one out. Because the locals will probably want to come.
Canopy cover,
A whole lot.
boxes we're ticking here, this is just.
Yeah, they could be awesome, but do you have any in mind? Just, you kind of
There's
go,
a few
oh, that's nice.
scattered across the city. No, there's a lot of little parks that we own, and they are just that, the little square with maybe a seesaw and they're a bit,
Eco reserve.
you know. They're definitely candidates, and where that would be effective is where we could overlay the urban forest plan.
Yeah.
Those could be
bolster it.
candidates. Yes, those could be candidates for that, and that would bolster it.
Yeah, okay. If you think of one in Harewood, anywhere in Harewood, and it's the biggest flatland ward in the city, Jason and I would be keen to engage with the locals.
Yeah.
And see if they're keen, and then we'll turn it into bush as an experiment.
Yeah.
Take it, what do you reckon?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no mo park or something, those would be great.
Yep.
Great.
And I think the neighbours will go for it. They go, oh, yeah, we pocketed bush. The kids can walk through and listen to bellbirds and tuies and
And they'll start complaining about sandflies.
fantails.
Just got to make sure we're savvy about the species we put in.
Very
Close to
nice.
those neighbouring properties, we put those trees,
Right,
because sometimes that can
be a problem.
kill it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that can kill a project if we go.
Well, it depends on its location, what it is, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have some pretty good, so Toby Chapman, who runs the tree program at council, he's got some really good software that's been developed that takes into account, different light levels at different types of day, that
great.
are associated with different species of plants. So the modelling is there that we can use. We're just going to find.
It also
candidates who-
depends on its placement too, because if it's on the north side of a street, then it's shade for most of the times onto the street, not onto other people's
Yeah, which is
properties,
great.
that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So,
the alignment is key.
Mhm.
Cool, all right, yeah, let's cover, yeah.
Oh, no, I just have a question. So in Waimāero, there's one park and it's in West Grove.
Mhm.
And it's got a cricket net. Is that part of?
It will be, most cricket nets are owned by council. Yes, some are owned by the clubs, but if it's,
not owned by a club, it's definitely the council.
Yeah,
So is
yeah.
that part of, because it's,
no, that'll be like an individual sort of asset that we would just.
Dilapidated?
yeah, it's not the best, and it's a really great, it's a great play, it's a great facility. I think it's just not the run up, but
Pitch.
I mean, up to it, the pitch, it's not it's like a big, in a great,
Colour parks and.
yeah,
I know
Just-
what you mean.
yeah.
it's an important issue.
Is it the net itself, or is it the?
I think it's south,
The turf.
I think it's the turf up to
Yeah.
and around it, and then they planted, it's really random, I think a while ago they planted trees, right? I just think it was the wrong area, because you've got this cricket pitch here, planted, there's other areas in the park where they could have planted it, but no, I think it's, some local kids were saying it's there's something wrong or it's not. So I just wondered if that was part. So that's not part of the place-based renewal, obviously.
No, it's not, but we do also have, it's not a rolling renewal package, so it's not part of here.
Yeah.
But we do have funding for recreational surfaces.
Right, okay.
So there's a reactive renewal fund for that. A lot of that we use sort of like skate parks that need to be resurfaced. I did the same sort of thing down at just after COVID in Eward Park. The cricket nets, all the run-ups were really rutted out, so we put down a new artificial surface.
Yeah.
So that fixed that.
Cool. So I'll go back
there is scope
and see, and then if there was a problem.
Yeah, I think a lot of that money this year is going to be absorbed through. We're going to look at doing the resurfacing at Washington Skate Park, but maybe in the future years, we could put it forward as a candidate.
Yeah, I don't think it's either had anything done to it.
Yeah, sometimes those aren't. We do, as part of the ongoing operational maintenance, we do go through all of our sports parks and renovate the sports fields.
It's just a shame.
But it's probably missed. It's probably not recognised as a.
And it's a shame because it's a great asset and I get it. It's not, but it's there, and it seems a shame to not have it up to scratch.
Yeah, a lot of those ones sort of get missed for some reason. Yeah. But thanks for putting it out.
It's not our ward, but nets in the middle of the city would be fantastic. Especially if you've got a little patch, like the size of an indoor cricket court, so like 8 or 10 people can play. That would go.
You're talking in a city?
In a city, right in the middle of town. Put it in the square. That for just crack. Imagine tourists that come on, hey, can we join in? People would love it. It'd be like one of the coolest things you could do in a city is an indoor cricket net outdoors with a surface and just go and help together.
With all the people that have been living in the city, with all the construction going on, it wouldn't be a bad shout.
Imagine the crowd, construction workers at lunchtime going down for a crack and stuff. People would get into it.
They would, yeah.
But it's not our ward, but.
Yeah, no. Taking on board.
You'd have to go if you're down there. You wouldn't be able to stop you.
I work at the Spark building in the middle of town, mate. It's just around the corner.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Moving on.
You just scroll down to the next page. Yeah, so then that brings up our hard surface renewals and then those individual projects. So some of these individual projects do include a bit of place-based renewal or hard surface renewal. Well, they can do, not all of them, but they can. Some of them are split over a couple of years because they're large projects. Some of them have already been half completed as well.
So Bridie, with the spoon one, so the board put better off funding into there.
Okay, yeah.
So can that money get spent in 25 or as we know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Sheldon Park hard surface renewal.
Yeah.
I'd be quite keen, just when whatever stage the planning is at that, quite keen to understand what that's scoped out as.
Okay.
In terms of where that's going, because again, I know you guys have the sports field network plan as well, which isn't necessarily on discussion here, but yeah, depending on how much of the funding is necessary for Sheldon Park, because for example, just like the main entrance into where the rugby club is diabolical, but the secondary entrance, which takes you over to the cricket and the netball, and that isn't in that bad a condition.
Yep.
So in terms of balancing funding and then where we can potentially reallocate some if wasn't funding for something like renovations on the actual park itself.
Yeah.
Just understanding just what the kind of initial plan is, just to see if there's some feedback or anything we can give on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that's been raised with me a lot.
Yeah, it is. It's
What's that?
I think the first year is just planning and delivery for the last two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And does it include a path across the park?
We can't squeeze it in because Canterbury Touch, their touch fields are so close together
Right.
that if you put a path hard up against the pole fence, it's only like a metre away from the back end of the edge of the touch, and also like a metre off the dead ball line for rugby.
Right.
And so if someone's scoring real late and then rolling through, but it's almost like something, could you put some other alternatives in concrete, because the kids are walking across, this is something we've raised before, where the kids are, that parking lot is used essentially as a school drop-off zone,
Yeah,
and so then kids are just having to walk through the
But your
wet
playground
parking that all the time.
Your spongy playground surface, isn't that expensive? Or is that-
very,
So it's dearer than asphalt?
oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's
Whiten it out. That'd be perfect, though.
Yeah, would
Get
be
along with that,
reduce
you'd be
the risk, yeah.
It's more taking someone out that's walking down the path at the time, that was all.
Wow, school drop-off is,
Yeah.
it's not so much finish.
Yeah, shouldn't have a senior game of
Between
rugby
8
going on
and
with
3 in
school
the,
drop
3 in the afternoon.
Shouldn't, but.
Um,
Drop your kids to school early. It's that afternoon, Mum.
I reckon landscape design, okay,
Been bad.
cool, so I think, look, that looks like that's the end of
Yeah.
that stuff there, just
Yeah.
off-piste related question.
Mhm.
The sports network plan,
Yeah,
now that's, the plan was released, but obviously then the grading of all of the parks and all that kind of stuff hasn't been released yet.
no, that's in flight at the moment.
It's like, do you know, I'm just interested to know like when you guys might be confident enough to drop that.
I've got a ECG for that this week.
Yeah.
And so I'll know after that meeting. So we'll know by the end of the week when that's going to happen. There's an assessment going on at the moment.
Yeah.
And so there's just a big matrix that we use to assess each individual field. There's lots of different criteria for each location, sorry. So that will inform that. So once that's collated, I believe that's when it'll be released. So
Yeah.
I know the assessment's been done, but I don't know if it's been collated yet.
So likely sometime in the new year, we'll.
I would say so. I would say so.
March or something.
I think it'll be before the end of March.
Yeah.
But I couldn't hand on heart tell you if it was going to be before Christmas.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be amazed, well, I'd be stoked if we could see something before Christmas. And yeah, I understand that there'll be some contentious, well, not contentious, but there'll be probably a lot of debate among certain elements of the community over the various rankings. There'll be a lot of nitpicking and stuff, which is pretty hard on you guys, but just getting it out there and allowing everyone to hash it out and then have those conversations will be pretty good, because we've got a few stakeholders in our areas that are very, very keen just to.
Yep.
Because a lot of the planning that they're looking at doing is just contingent on that type of information, because then they have to work out based off of that plan, how they can fit in their plans around that and if we can make changes and all that other stuff. So that's good to hear. Thank you. Anyone got anything else?
No, so you'll come back to Jason and I with the Pointless Park.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, if you just
Neil.
want that item for me to the pointless part. Yep. Sounds good.
Yeah,
Cool.
be fun.
All right.
And you.
It may go nowhere,
It might, but
but we
Right.
don't know until we ask. And then,
There was gardens by January,
Mhm.
and then anything FY 26 or if we're moving stuff forward, again, so much sooner rather than later because you're doing your planning.
Yeah.
Anything FY 27, 28.
Mhm.
It's not as much urgency.
Yeah.
Okay,
cool.
awesome.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
unless you want to put a playground just along in Sticks Middle Reserve by Willowbank. There's nothing for all that end of Northwood. They got no playground at that end.
I recognise that.
Yeah, just
So
like
there's an
it.
existing park, makes sense.
Yeah.
You're not going to create a new park just for a playground. There's already parks there.
Oh, yeah, there's tons of space.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, and kids are already going to Willowbank.
Yeah. I'll mention it to the planners for doing it.
Thanks, Bruce.
Yeah.
That'd be a good spot, Jess. That's next to, Willowbank, is the big Stick Reserve side, Hussey's Road. You can get into, there's all that parking.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Tree that up. Get rid of those gums and put native space there. Free moves and some.
Seen it twice now, you can do it. Be safe to the board. How you doing, everyone?
Good evening, team.
Hi.
Coming in. Apologies, we're a little bit light today, but.
We're not.
Lovely, you doing?
We're very interested and ready for you to go.
Okay, right. Yeah. Have you've got a clicker or?
I'm the clicker.
You're the clicker, all right.
We just need a code for you to click.
So the wink with your right eye to go that way, left eye.
Try and test it.
Purpose of the briefing, to give you some information on the purpose of programmes, rationale for selecting them, and then there's a list of projects that are in your community board. Hopefully you've seen those before, because it is just a big list and I don't intend to go through them one by one. I just intend for you to sit there and ask us questions about them and talk through them. Go on then, Aidan, let's jump on in. Yeah, so we've got about 1.6 billion to spend over the next 10 years in our capital programme. When we did our activity management plan as part of the long-term plan, the transport was split into 3 categories, which were safety, access and environment. So every project sits within that. You can see there's a breakdown: access, safety, access, environment. Within each of those, we had programmes that target the levels of service, and then below those, the individual projects that deliver the sort of things you see on the ground. So lots of those programmes were partially or fully broken down. So the one at the top there, you can see transport access, intersection safety, and you can see every single project that's under that programme is already drawn down. So LTP time, council knew what they were signing up for. And the ones below, they've got delivery packages and programmes. And so those are the ones really we're going to focus on today, talking about what those breakdowns are all about. So how do we choose them? So there's a whole set of things. We've got a huge amount of data on what our transport network looks like, how it operates. So just as a few examples that I put on there on the screen. So the top left is our traffic counts. You can look at that on the council's website. Bottom left is CAS. So that's the national record of accidents from the police records. Bottom right is a screenshot of the NLTP, so that's NZTA's funding, and the top right is LMD, so that's a way of looking at the strength of the structure of the road. So underneath the surface, how strong that is, and we'll come back to that later. So if we jump on,
sorry, Jason, just quickly on it. Why do we use police data and not insurance data?
You have to see this, but
I've asked before, but the insurance one would also give you a cost to a financial cost.
But not everything goes to insurance for a start.
Does it not?
Well, I'd imagine so.
Well, to be fair, there are holes in all the data sources, and we are doing some.
Yeah, well, you need both.
Even looking at hospital admission data.
Right.
There's a whole load of different ACC information. There's a whole load of data out there. But using the police data is a consistent set that everybody across the country uses. But we are looking to try and fill those gaps in and draw comparisons.
Because the road code says if you had a non-injury accident,
yeah, exactly. And so a lot of those ones don't get recorded very well. We are aware of that, and we are looking to try and.
I mean, there have been estimates trying to work out the difference between what's on CAS and what we've seen as hospital admissions.
Yeah.
And so we're starting to get some information about where the missing accidents, for want of a better word, are, and the types of accidents they are, which is quite interesting, but we're not quite there yet.
But just to go back on that, sorry, Jacob, a lot of that prioritisation from the safety stuff also comes from NZTA and their Kiwi Rap tool. So we have to tie in with what they tell us to use.
Cool. Lost my train of thought now. Sorry. So that's very easy. So the point we're trying to make here is that we use data. The data is dynamic by its nature. And so the priorities that we've got on there will change as we go through. So we've got some where we've tried to forecast them out for 10 years. But I mean, if they're a retaining wall, something else may well fall over. That's an emergency and the funding gets used for that. So it is dynamic, it will change. In terms of your influence over those programmes and what's in there, year one to this financial year is entirely locked in. Most of those are being delivered as we speak. Year two, a lot of it is with contractors. We're doing the lots of the checks that we have to do before we go and do it. So they're mostly completely locked in, and then year three's got a bit more scope for change, year four more, and so on and so forth. So you get a sense that if you want to change stuff, don't change this year, change stuff a bit further out. Yeah,
And by year, you mean the year we're in or the one that's?
so we're in year one, so we talk about, when we talk about years, we
So
talk about
year
financial
two is
years.
1st of July 25.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. So I've been told by various sources that NZTA funding is our second highest source of revenue after rates. So I've not actually been through the books to check it, but I've been told that a few times. We were quite successful in the last NLTF. We got that's a greater than 30% increase, well above our sort of peers. How? The data we keep.
So you guys are just 30% better than everyone else?
No, part of it, the big part of it was actually that we had a broad, when we put in the bid to NZTA, we put a broad range in. And we sort of had some signals of where we thought government funding was going, but we were also setting up through the LTP process to actually look at, you know, so our own infrastructure strategy and our priorities through the long-term plan ended up aligning with governments. But we had a very broad program. We put a lot of stuff in, and they were able to pick out the projects that then the work that then aligned with the new government priorities. So
a bit of divining, it's like a science and an art type thing going on there.
Yeah, it's a bit science and a bit art, and we've got some really good people that do some really good work in that space. But they gave us the best opportunity that we could. And then post that, we had a bit more where we were able to leverage other programs like the Crown Resilience Fund, and got another $5 million out of that for retaining walls across the city. So yeah.
Is that there?
So yeah, it was having a broad range that meant that a decent chunk of it aligned with the new GPS. Yeah.
But do you hear just on occasion that, you know, Auckland and Wellington get all the money and the South Island doesn't really get any a lot of the time? So to hear that you guys did reasonably well on this, but it's kind of like, oh, that sounds like it's a nice change from what we tend to hear a lot. But
it is still a small pot of money in comparison to what's happening up in the north, but we are moving up. So last NLTP round, we finally cracked the 200 million as a total of what we expected to get over a 3-year period. This year we went up to 300.
Okay, cool, thank you.
So the main point I want to make on this slide is again that in order to attract that funding and to make sure we have access to it, we do have to follow their rules around the types of projects that we pick, the way we do them, and the timing of them. So there's a lot of rules, and other sources of funding outside of NLTF are things like crafts. There's 1 or 2 bits that have come through your board, aren't there? And shovel ready and other things. And again, there are a lot of rules around how we can use that funding. We can't just be like, oh yeah, we've got money, let's go and do whatever we want. We have to sort of be pretty focused on what it's there for and what it's intended to be used for.
Do the rules and eligibility processes like auditing, does that change government to government? Do they change those all the time, or is it relatively consistent?
Audit?
Well, just the general.
The rules change quite a lot, yeah.
Change a lot,
significantly.
Yeah.
And they did this time around quite significantly.
Probably the most in a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the most we've had in a long time. Even the change from national to Labour last time, so 2 NLTPs ago, wasn't as extreme as this change.
So are we getting progressively more requirements, or does it swing? It's always, or more or less, does it vary?
It's not necessarily the rules, I would say. Sorry.
No, it's the reporting requirements.
Yeah.
They're getting more and more and more.
Yeah.
And this time around, they're quite extensive. Yeah.
So is that costing money, more money?
Because we need staff to do the reporting.
So then, given we've now got a Minister of Efficiency and Red Tape Cutting, we need as elected members, we need a list of the problems to then take to them and go, you realise your other department over here is increasing, not decreasing.
But you can't determine it's a problem until you've had a go at it.
True. But if you find some glaringly obvious ones,
Yeah.
feel free to lean on our side to then go and say,
And
hey,
we will, but I think it's gonna be 12, 18 months before we see the outcomes.
before you know.
The point I want to make as well is that it's not just around the reporting rules and how onerous those are. They also set rules about effectively what they're trying to buy with the money they're giving us. So
yeah,
we have to be quite aware of what they're trying to buy and make sure that we put the right projects in there. in order to hit that. Okay. So now we'll get into the detail and pretty much, well, there's one more slide where I'll talk, and then from then on in, it's mostly questions. So feel free to take over from that point. So if we jump forward one, this little slide, don't start grumbling, everyone grumbles today. The point I want to make with this is that resurfacing is dealing with the sort of the bit at the top, the black bit at the top. But actually a road is quite a deep structure with lots of layers underneath. So resurfacing is dealing just with that top layer. Rehabilitation is dealing with, within the road boundaries, it's dealing with the full structure or part of the full structure. Street renewals is dealing with the boundary to boundary. So that's where you get your opportunity to completely change the nature of a street. So you can, suburban streets that are sort of 4 lanes wide effectively can be brought in. And then footpath resurfacing is obviously footpath resurfacing, and that deals just with the footpaths. Steve's programs are automatically pulled onto the website. He demanded that we put the link on there. I think every time he comes to talk to you, he gives you that link. You can go on that, and it's a GIS and
Website traffic after the community boards, is it?
but if you go on there, you can see this year's and next year's programme. Or at the moment, you can probably see this year's, and you're about to be able to see next year's. I think.
I'll click the link now, so you'll get 1 + 1 on the.
Cool. And then if we go forward, Aidan, so every single one from now on has these 2 sheets. So one tells you the criteria for what we used to pick them, and then also the criteria for prioritising them. And then the next one are those ones that apply for your board area. So, like I said, from this point on, it's really questions for you. There's surfacing, there's rehabilitation, there's street renewals, there's footpath resurfacing, and then we go into some other bits and bobs. So, all yours, really. Over to you.
Okay, cool. One word we've had have been asked to ask about by people that can't be here is we just want to get some clarity on Brindua Road.
Mm-hmm.
So what, because it just seems to be a little bit of confusion between what the mayor thinks is happening and then what you guys are. And you've come with
A picture.
a picture.
So going back to those previous slides where you had, keep going back.
You know, the one with the 4 pictures where
Yeah, the coloured
you
one.
can go back to that with the dots. That one.
So if you look at that image in the top right hand corner, green's good, red's bad. The majority of Brindware is in green, except for the areas that you've got there in red. So the initial parts of Brindware that we were looking to try to look at renew as a street renewal or rehab actually doesn't need it because it's actually very small pavement. The issue there is going to be the camera the size of the.
Well, yeah.
Hang on, which end are you talking about? You
The
don't
top
know
end,
that one.
the top end. there's a lot-
Jeffrey's tunnel.
Yeah, the top end is one of the areas that is actually the worst.
Yeah.
We need to look at. The bottom area is the one that was up for either a rehabilitation or a street renewal. Actually, it's very strong. So,
It's the end with the old sign.
so if
The
we,
HQ facility.
Yeah, down towards Glendavis.
yeah, so if we use all of this here, it doesn't stack up for a street renewal. So you'd end up,
Reuse facility.
or either for a citizen, because it would mean that you're throwing money away when it's not ready for its life cycle.
But it's deep dish, isn't it?
Doesn't matter, it doesn't
Right.
matter if it's deep dish.
So can I take a step back? So this chart comes from something that Steve and Dave's team is were keen to get. So basically they've driven a big truck around every street in the city. It's got a weight on it. It looks at how the pavement deflects. And that gives you an idea of how strong the structure underneath the surface is. And that's what's important here. So you can have roads that are rough on the top, but strong underneath, and you can have roads that are smooth on the top.
It's very weak at that top end.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's horrendous condition.
yeah.
Like I always spill my coffee down there.
I should buy you a lid.
If we follow that,
It's my service level measure.
if we follow that against the other streets around the city, there's 175 streets ahead of that.
The red end or the green
The
end?
red,
Okay, I'd dispute that.
Well, we've got tons of evidence.
Email me your 10 worst. I'm gonna go look at them with the mayor.
Give me 175 worst.
Okay, give me the list.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a look.
Yeah, one of the things the data does look at is not necessarily just what the surface looks like, it's the whole substructure of the road.
Yeah. But doesn't that mean if the substructure down this end's good, then that end's a resurface and the other end's a rebuild?
Yeah, can be,
Yeah.
And you can't resurface and change your curb and channel.
You just put waterproof layer on top.
So, and this is completely off the record and there's no members here. When you go down there, and your houses are, the front of the properties are a long way back, it would seem a sitter for down of some sort, or a big shared path on one side of the road or something, just because a lot of kids in this area bike, they actually go to the schools and stuff like that. That would be a potential. Did you guys think that as well when you were there? Look at these two laughing at me. But I don't know if that's helpful or not, but.
The issue is.
Because the berms are massive.
So the issue is the issue for the guys, the team is, if we want to go through and make sure we keep getting a good level of NZTA support around our maintenance and ops, which is our resurfacing and our particularly our resurfacing and our rehab sites, they have to be condition based. So, you know, if you went down and you had a street that was green like that, you would either resurface it if it needed it, or you would not do anything, because that's the condition basis. Then you get into your street renewals and there's other factors that come into play. Now, you as a board have told us that Bringba is high priority. At the moment, it is not on the list, because it is purely condition based. No, on our list, because our list is purely condition based and based on some of those factors. So we're trying to pull all those other factors in, and that's part of coming out to talk to you today. I know it came up as part of the LTP, but it couldn't be put as part of that discussion. And the talk through that was around it being sitting out in that, possibly out in year 3. It may tip over into year 4 of the process to get it.
That doesn't measure camber of the road, did you say, Steve?
No, that's the condition, it's the strength.
Underneath, yeah.
The strength underneath.
Completely understand that, but the camber of that road.
But that's what the other factors come in. The condition factors are the strength of the road underneath, the quality of the surface, the age of the surface.
Flooding?
No, the flooding, we've been down there and done a huge amount of work. There was a couple of block drains down there and there was a number of blocked crossing blocks as well. And the team have gone down and cleared all of that and dealt with it. I don't think there's been flooding down there since.
I'll go have a look on the next rain event.
Yeah, but we certainly haven't had any feedback from the people that were giving us quite vocal and vehement feedback at the time around the flooding. So the crossing block, particularly under the entrance to the aged care facility, and the crossing block across the drain across the intersections were blocked, and they've now been cleared. So that's helping with the clearing of the flooding. So there's often multiple issues when we get complaints in, and it's not always just the one that everyone thinks it is. It could be something else.
So what's the camber then seems to be the main.
The issue is that street is a really steep street.
Yep.
The curbs and channel, they're old. There are places where they're in very poor condition, but they are the deep dish curb and channel, and that makes access in the street much more difficult for residents.
And that was the main complaint that I can recall from the community. So with that in mind, with that being the key factor and then the criteria you're working with, what does that mean for us?
If you as a board are clear that is your number one priority as a board and you want us to keep it on the radar, we will go away and look at what can we do and where can we slot it in given others. It wouldn't slot into a resurfacing or a rehab, but it will. We've got more room to move.
Well, next week, you've got to do the gutters at some point.
David's nodding. We've got a little bit more room to manoeuvre within the street renewal program.
Okay.
So if you
haven't got a lot of money.
No.
But if you go to so those sheets that I told you, the 2 sheets for each one. So the street renewals there will tell you the criteria for selection, and it does include things like the age of the curbs and the channels.
I'm pretty sure between all 3 of our wards, that none of us have another street as a higher priority in our 3 wards. than that one.
That is the clear information that we want to get back from you as a board. So, I mean, other boards haven't given us that feedback on the day. We're getting it coming in after, but that's the clear feedback we need to get. And then next year, we'll be coming round to do the same thing again, have a conversation about what the next 3 years look like, and then the next 3 years. So if we do this every year, we start building up an understanding of what you're hearing in your boards and how we start seeing these things moving.
So then if that falls under a renewal at some point, is it a case then of looking at what renewals are scheduled in our area and then reprioritising those?
I've got the list. If you go forward, probably 4 slides, 5 slides, maybe. Rehabilitation. There you go.
So there's actually only 2 at the moment.
For which year, starting when? On there?
Within the 10 years.
Within the 10-year period at the moment.
So how?
Bristol Street and Burrows Place, is that this one I'm looking at?
Yeah. Those are the 2.
That seems like that isn't a lot of money for what it is that we're talking here. Those seem relatively minor comparatively.
They're quite short sections, and that's the issue. So that is an issue.
We wouldn't have enough funding to reprioritise from upcoming ones in our area in the short term, without taking it from another ward area or something along those lines potentially.
Yeah, potentially that's what it's looking at. Yeah.
So if I could add, I mean, what's happened over here, as you can see on the roads over there, it's got about
around Aaron's, we can have a look at it.
Yeah. It's about 6 years life left inside there. So it perfectly targets.
That's the subsurface
Sure.
of, that's not the.
Yeah.
So, I mean, no one came in complaining about what's under the road and will the road hold up, like none of them do that.
Yeah.
Council, what happens underneath influences actually what happens on the surface.
Yeah, so the green end's cheaper to do than the red end. The red end's gonna be a bit of work by the look of that.
The green end's you're gonna take all that structure off because you're gonna have to break it down. Yeah, but anyway, sorry, David.
No, not at all. So we've got 170 sections, as Steve alluded to earlier, that are less than 0 life left in it. But this particular section that we're looking at the moment, it's got 6 years life left in it. It perfectly targets the next LTP. So that's where it actually sits as it would really fit in well. However, once again, it is up to the community board once again to give direction to officers to see where you'd like to prioritize.
What year would that road look like look like this, or around the corner, or every other road?
It could be coming through in year 4 or year 5.
Yep.
From now or from the LTP?
No, we're in year 1 now.
We're in year 1 now, so 2, 3, 4, 5. So the first couple of years, the first couple of years of the next LTP, that's
27, 28.
But it's definitely 2 years away. Because we can't, we're pretty stuck with what we've.
You've already got locked in.
Yeah, we've
got
designs underway, yeah.
Things attended, and the LTP signal, I mean, the amendment from councillor Goff suggested in FY 27, which is year 3.
So that actually aligns with the next LTP cycle that you're talking
It's
about.
just before the next LTP cycle,
Yeah.
It could be, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, they're still 3 years away.
Well, it's
2.5.
But even having a lock date at some point in the future where we know we can get the funding allocated to it without wider city negotiations on reallocating projects, maybe it's the lowest hanging fruit on that one.
Okay, is there another way to skin this cat?
There's always another way to skin a cat.
Because when you start talking to people about 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, they tend to not be as happy. When you're saying 24 months away or 12 months or 6, whatever, they're the numbers people like. Once you're over 24 months.
Yeah, but we've got at least 12 months of work to get into doing a project. So the only other way to skin the cat is to have more budget available for street renewals.
But only one. Not and more, but that one.
Yeah, but if you're running a citywide prioritisation, we will always run that prioritisation. It's possible that there's other streets that would come up
So
that would be
what
your.
percentage of this one do you get from NZTA?
Oh, it's very,
If
very
it's a
low.
rebuild?
Yeah, most of the street renewals. are
Most is
incredibly-
incredibly low. You'd be lucky if you get 10%.
Was that it?
Yeah.
I
Because
thought,
we will only.
I thought I recently heard some stuff around how many roads they're rebuilding. Are they only state highways and that, are they not?
Oh, they'll be putting out all sorts of stats, but the biggest subsidy goes on the resurfacing work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because of this, because our street renewals involve berms and footpaths and curb and channel.
Oh, yeah, that is a renewal, it's not a
Yeah,
resurface.
but because it's all that, there's a
Waste of
whole,
money.
there's a much larger amount of our street renewals that are not subsidised. So that was partly part of the conversation around if you pushed and shoved some of the transport program, like we're talking through with regard to the annual plan, my suggestion was to bring back some street renewal money from future years so that we could do it earlier, because these are the things that
So
impact.
that's what we need to do, is as part of the annual plan, just bring. So what else can we juggle out then, so we don't change rates?
That's the issue. That's your job at the council. Sorry.
Okay, so you need to give me a number that we can then start the
But we-
planning works in the next financial year for that renewal, so that road gets rebuilt. We need to know the number that is in the financial year that starts next year.
Yep.
The pre-works get done. So then you can go to the people and say, well, actually, it starts next year, starts in 12 months or in 6 months or 18 months, and it would look to be delivered, blah, blah.
Yeah, as a board, you could also look to reprioritise that money.
That's not
Would
how
help.
much, is it?
You've got almost $1 million.
Yeah.
You've got almost $1 million here, 1.5 million.
Okay. Yeah.
So you've got a reasonable amount there.
Prioritise that.
Do you want to put that through as an action that we come back to the board with a rough cost for
Yeah.
And a
Brindale Road, and we can
And
look
put
at,
up a
we can
plan.
look at that over the next few weeks and get you something back in time for annual plan.
Jacob, just when you're doing the sorting them by ward,
Yeah,
are you using the latest map? Because I just see Eberly at the top there of the list that didn't make it. That's in the Innes ward now. So I'm just wondering if the
And don't we get another boundary change next year?
no, I wouldn't think so.
So every 2 elections. And then-
So I'm gonna suggest, because we should ask that and we said we corrected it and now we've been asked again. Which is, where?
Eberly Crescent just jumped out at me
Yeah.
because we lost Eberly Park as part of our board area.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's our new instance.
It's a loss, that's a lovely
It
part.
is a lovely park.
Happy to keep the local, hard to keep the locals happy though, so.
Yes.
I suggest we will review and we will double check. And then we'll review the list, because it might change the list a little bit. I suggest we do that, but at the moment, there does appear to have been confusion between what's been said in some parts and others. It's not. It has always been us coming back to talk to you about, are you prepared to reprioritise? Look, you've got 1.5 million there.
How much do we need?
It's not a lot, but.
Yeah, how much do we need?
I don't know, we'd need.
Yeah, if we can just find out.
Yeah, we'll come back with the numbers, that's sort of.
Yeah.
Because then if we don't know that, we can't say whether
Yeah.
that's enough or whether we need to go somewhere else. Or
Yeah.
whether it's.
That's it, if you fire it to us in action, I'll probably pass it on to Dave and they
Yeah.
can
They can
put something together for you.
It'll make good inroads. That's it.
Well, and if we can show the residents progress and that there's a date
Yeah,
on a bit of paper with when things are happening, then.
Well, that's got essentially start work money in 2025.
Yeah.
So that's your planning and stuff money by the look of that.
yeah,
Design and.
Yeah, that's that 2025's design and that, so that can be, and that has, those two haven't started, have they?
Really just.
Just barely.
So
started.
we're
now's the time to
doing
make
that
it
here.
all.
Okay,
Yeah, so we can do that by the And one of them looks like it's got quite a bit of lead in time, so Bristol. So that's that one.
Okay, well, yeah, I think we're reasonably happy with where we're at now on that, and I guess it's just a key thing for me, it's just if we can try and get the ball, the mayor, the CE and all of our councillors on the same page in terms of where they think things are at, which hopefully we can just communicate that and make sure that everyone's good, because that's probably one of the biggest things causing the slowdown is people just think different things are happening and have to have conversations over and over again, and it just slows you guys down in terms of what's actually happening. So we'll try and get everyone aligned on that.
Yeah, so all of the information, just for your information, all of the information that I've been giving to the council has been, we're going to work with the community board on this, because it isn't a program that we can reprioritise without having to go back to council.
Okay.
So
That's cool.
All right, then working through, now Aidan's done me the favour of putting some items on there that are not all necessarily my patch, but a good chunk of them are. Do you mind if we just rattle through some of those?
Yeah. Might not know the answer straight off the top of my head.
Sticks Mill Road resurfacing was one, which was on there. I have had some issues raised around some of the manhole covers and then the condition of the road there causing some issues on Sticks Mill Road. When you drive over it, it's creating a lot of reverberation in the houses and the new development there. That I've seen some communication from staff back to the resident on that one, but I don't know if the solution's actually been dealt with.
I raised that directly with Brent as well. So they need like a rubber washer or something, like a rubber rim or whatever. So as you hit them, they don't go bang.
So it does depend on whether it's one of our manhole covers or whether it's
a
telco manhole.
No,
whether it's a water
round and it looks like ours.
That's one of the standard kind of pizza dish looking ones. I checked in with a guy probably only a couple of weeks ago and said was waiting to hear some feedback from one of the staff members, but so there's been no resolution, but he was waiting to get
it's
something.
Probably Three Waters that it's gone to. That's the
okay.
We can follow up. And the resurfacing is Sticks Mill Road.
There's no plan for resurfacing Sticks Mill.
Okay.
Yeah, and it won't be until all the subdivision rules.
Yeah, because they have to do a lot of all the curbing and that wasn't it. What's that?
Did someone ask for it?
No.
I think there was that guy who got in touch with you a couple of weeks ago.
About the resurface.
That endlessly.
Yeah.
It's going to have to be a whole lot of.
Oh, but he might have been more querying because you've got all those broken edges where the subdivision's going in, but they've just done that this week. They've been sealed, and outside the fire station, that's all being sealed like as we speak. So new street's gone in on the other side of the fire station next to the preschool.
A lot of the new curvy channel down there is going to have to be replaced as well when they put houses in to put vehicle entranceways.
Yeah, they have to break it out.
It's brand new full height curb.
Yeah. Before I get into another one in that particular area, the Gardeners Road shared path, which has been referred to look for a few times because of other priorities.
Design is underway. They'll be back to you sort of early next year.
Oh,
there is a slide at the end which is on there, but the design is underway. Yeah,
It was on the list.
yeah, it is. It's on the final because it's not a programme. I've sort of dumped it in the end as a sort of discussion point.
I was literally on the one.
So,
okay, cool. Gardeners Road, yes, okay, that's great. And then essentially, because there was and I'm not sure what the specific term for it is, but the development plan for that market garden area that's still there, which essentially when that gets developed, they'll put footpath in to that final stretch. Yeah. That final stretch will just get done as a part of the development, will it? So how does, from that perspective, I don't know if you guys know the answer to this, because I imagine that hasn't even been sold yet and it hasn't even been any development plans, but essentially when someone does buy it, there's a template that they have to meet in terms of what they have to put in services wise. So there could be an unknown period of time where we have that big gap between there and the houses, right?
It could be, and Councillor Kewen brought that up when we went through the conversation about the original shed path, if I remember rightly. My understanding is, well, pumpkin patch has just been planted again, so it's obviously still in pumpkins. And then there's the other paddock beyond that, on the other side.
It's almost like
And then we've got the two houses as well, which will never be developed.
No.
So we'll have to connect those. So the idea was to get up to at least get up to the path outside the new developments. Developments and all that area, and then make a plan for the next bit. That was the idea. And the new footpath program will help, and it will be part of what is considered.
So we're jumping around a bit. So if we go back, can we go back one slide, Aidan? So this, the first year of this programme is to work out what we're going to do and where. These are the ones that were on the original list. So this isn't to say that they're going to be built, they're just in the list to be prioritised. If you know things that are not on that list, please let us know. If they don't go on the long list, they definitely won't end up on the short list. So that's my plea to you is if you fire it back through Aidan or Marianne, then we can make sure they're on that long list.
Is it just a case of renewing old footpaths to new footpaths?
These are not renewals of footpaths. These are places where there is no existing.
So like
Gardner's Road.
Yeah, or and like the city firewood to Smacks Close, board priority I put in that we just couldn't find the funding for because.
City priority, but there's a footpath down there on one side of the road.
It stops.
No.
At Smacks Close. On the other side.
Yeah, other side, no.
No, there's a footpath on the other side.
You're talking about the different.
There's a footpath on one side of the road.
Hussey's Road side.
Max on the.
Yeah, so I'm talking about, so that wouldn't, because there's footpath on one side of the road, it wouldn't qualify, is that what we're saying? Okay.
There's absolutely no.
Okay.
So some sections of Sticks Mill Road where there's absolutely no provision.
Yeah.
And there's no.
Gardner's Road?
Yeah, well, that bit of Gardner's Road where there's no provision.
Yeah.
To
Okay.
join up.
Okay, sure. No, that's fine then.
But that list there, none of them will get done ahead of Gardner's Road that was put on budget.
No,
in
Gardner's Road's a
2017.
project in its own right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's going.
But that'll get delivered before any of these.
No,
get delivered.
I'm stuck, hey, look, hey, as long as we get there, we'll get there.
In Redcliffe Road, when does the developer do half of that?
It's the next slide.
By the old people's home, they're putting that in that side anyway, aren't
Opposite Northwood.
they? Super
Yeah.
Centre.
Oh, yeah, that side, yeah.
Okay.
Or the western side.
So is that feedback in the comment, is that, because that feedback, Kiwi Rail due to crash, priority for Kiwi Rail due to crashes and condition?
Yeah.
I haven't heard that feedback.
They had a crash there
They have a crash around here.
a couple of years. No, they had a crash. Train hit a car and shoved it out of the way.
That changed the ranking.
For them, it does, and so they're very, very keen to get in. And apparently, it's in pretty bad condition as well. So they're really keen to go in and do it. And our experience on Harewood, Langdon, and Sawyers Hunt is that if they want to do stuff and we want to do stuff, the best way of us getting it done is to jump on board with them. So we are.
So do we have a date on that?
Not at the moment, but they're doing the design. We're doing the design. There's stuff going on, but
the rest of Redcliffe Road at the same time.
That's the idea. That's the idea. That's the idea is that we'll do it all and we'll link it all the way up to Blake's Road. And
Because we were asking that question around, can we put the pathing in without the crossing being done due to liability, and there was a question around liability issues.
yeah, it does.
Oh, we hadn't had any.
And what we've seen in
Then we get into the situation we've got into over in
Scrutton's, yeah.
So
We
you,
shut our path down and we just sit there with it.
how soon will we get a date on Redcliffe Road?
12 months, 6 months. Okay, well, it's up and down.
Let's get the date for when it.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. That's what I'm asking. I'm like, can you?
I'd be surprised if it's done within 12 months is my honest answer.
Job done.
As in job done. I'd be very surprised. I don't know, we'll get more clarity as we go through. I know that's a really vague answer, but there's so much stuff that every time you touch anything, it impacts their existing
So do you
network.
think-
So once they start looking at the
You
design,
get us a date before Christmas. So you got another month.
March.
no, I'm not going to get you an answer
No,
before
a date
Christmas.
for when it's likely to be delivered.
Not this side of Christmas, no.
And then my feedback would be, then that's only as good as it is at the on
Yeah.
that day.
Yeah.
But that's the first time we've ever.
Change the next
Yeah.
day, but my utmost concern is to put a date out there in the community and
Yeah.
expectations raised and shatter them.
We put provisional in front of it.
But
It doesn't matter.
I would say we're in a better place than we were 6 months ago,
So-
getting Radcliffe delivered. That's the position
That would get delivered. You reckon it'd be in within 24 months?
I cannot, but.
But you can very clearly say to your constituents that it is a priority for Kiwirrawl and it is a priority for us.
Yeah.
But, you know, their priorities and your constituents' priorities might be, timeframes and expectations will be different.
Yeah.
At the
Their
moment,
kids
we
have to
don't
walk
have
on the
a
edge of the road to school.
We were
I know,
that we had on it was like even just the design and the approval process is like an 18 month process. And that's, but I guess.
And then you've got to get a bock line booked in and you've got to get the chain
So
stopped.
can
and you've
you
got to
not
get it
just
on.
cut and paste what you've done at those others almost? on the
No.
design?
Because it depends on their network and the condition of their network, any other things that need doing, it's not, it's gotta be done.
It's close to signals as well, that certainly when we looked at Thompson's Road, there were issues because the signals are up at Belfast and the length of the trains. And so the particular location and conditions make a really big difference. Oh, yeah.
And I'd really like to get the sump kicker out of it, that'd be really
Traffic calm.
good.
It's traffic calming because you can't really go each over these.
Not
Very
for
safe.
some people, there's a lot of divots out of that.
Yep.
Out of that.
And they learn
Myself.
when they leave their axle behind.
I mean, in theory, it should be a bit simpler than certainly than Scrutton's because it's single track and it's much lower train usage, but
Okay, no, but that's positive and we really appreciate the update.
On the list is better than normal.
There is a note, so, and this is a positive, as what it might be.
Another positive.
But on Radcliffe, we've put up a staff request for additional funding to support that, to keep moving. So your board support would help there in the annual plan too.
Yeah.
So there is a staff proposal to put additional funding on budget in the draft LTP, annual plan.
Was that just moving funding forward or was that actually additional funding to speed things up a little bit?
Extra.
And is that as a result of the Kiwirrawl
The fact that
priority
we're ready to
feedback?
go. Yeah.
Okay.
All there.
So bear in mind as well, I've got work in that area. So the intersection of Northwood, Main North Road and Radcliffe is, that whole section of road is something I'm looking to do next year.
Okay.
As soon as I get the funding from the agency.
Yeah.
Do what to?
Well, we're taking over that whole left road.
Redo
So those intersections particularly, I've got to renew them. So I've got to take the intersection out and rebuild a new intersection, but the rest of it from Chinese Quarter, is it Chinese Quarter? All the way down to Chinese Drive,
Yeah.
resurfacing.
Okay.
There's a lot of resurfacing down.
Because there was been a few hiccups with the handover of Main North Road, wasn't there? We thought it was handed over and there were some conditions.
No,
That's how it is.
there's no hiccups with it. It's just there's a couple of things. One, they haven't released the funding, and two, they still have to hold all the legal requirements of the ownership of the road until it's gone through a whole load of checks and balances.
Yeah.
So just.
But it's all progressing.
But when I go down there, it doesn't seem very bad.
There's quite a lot of cracking.
Yeah, it's part of the handover. So NZTA give us, by us taking on the road, they give us a sum of money.
They give you the money to do it.
Yeah.
Because it will be hard for us to explain to the locals down there that we're resurfacing the road, but your kids walking down from around there, down Radcliffe Road, still have to walk on the.
But now that we know that progress is being made, that'll make that a little bit.
It's just so that we don't.
They're completely different projects.
Yeah.
That's why I thought I'd add it in purely because we're working in an intersection.
Thank you for that. And also the local residents association would be quite happy to hear that as well.
Yeah.
I mentioned the North Kirk Sawyers Arms and Greers intersection. That was one that we supported the Papanui and a central board on retaining funding for in the last LTP. Which I think it was.
No, I don't think it was.
Was it not? Was it not retained in the end?
I don't know. It was at the end.
I don't know.
Because I thought Papanui board had put up some alternatives to.
Yeah, I'd heard that as well, but.
Oh, so is that one being kicked out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'd be good just to find that one out, because I think when we were,
It's gone, yeah, there's no funding for it.
it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Okay, because I think, all
There
right.
is some work being done with Pickering and Innes Ward on that corridor. We will be looking at it again.
So, but then that funding being gone also ties in with the staff recommendation of number 7 for Harewood Road. To just do the lights and the cycleway at the end, but because if you do the lane reduction,
It impacts the traffic on.
You're going to impact the traffic on things. So that kind of aligns.
It kind of does. It wasn't deliberate.
No, but it does align a lot.
Yeah, it was the, sort of the prioritisation that was used through the LTP was that whole looking after what we've got. Supporting growth and the growth projects and subdivisions around the city, and there was a couple of others. Sharon's told me about like multiple times and I kept forgetting. But that prioritisation and the whole overall affordability thing, it's not gone, but it's just not, it's not visible in the 10-year period at the moment, but that could change in the next LTP as well.
And the double laning of Northcote Road?
No, that's not
So it's gone because a few more
incredible.
front fences have moved back.
That's
Still the land's bought.
No,
Is
the
it
land's
not
not
bought
bought
yet?
at all. It's just designated.
Oh.
It's a designation down there. There's no land bought.
None been purchased?
No. No.
Mm. Okay. So that's on the back burner now.
And again, any and all of that changing is leading up to a Kiwi crossing.
Yeah, I know that.
And we were just like,
No.
So with the ministers.
he's going to become our manager of Kiwi Rail interfaces.
With our minister's plan to make traffic flow better in cities, second largest city, projects like Northcote Road, which would then be the Swords Arms intersection and stuff, do they not suddenly trigger more central government funding?
No. They don't.
Not at this point?
The GPS talks about getting people where they want to go faster and safer and all the rest of it, but the bulk of the money and the bulk of the funding sits in potholes and maintenance and looking after what we've got really well.
Okay.
That's fair.
Which came up last week in national media around concrete roads.
Yeah.
And why do we not do them? Concrete's the cheapest in Christchurch for the country.
Oh, well, as you say that himself,
Have you
Dave
got
and
one?
Steve,
You're looking at one?
all up at a conference last week when.
When it got
was there,
pitched, yeah.
and it was a heavily pushed, but these guys are probably better qualified to speak
I've
about it than me.
done some concrete stuff around Christchurch.
Yeah.
But for me, specifically within a city, within a built-up area in a city, this could be a really, really good reason for it. I've only used it in areas where I needed to add extreme strength, and this to do with the electric bus fleet, with the acceleration of braking forces, and insignificantly heavier weights of the electric buses. I've used it in bus stops and the approaches in and out of it. If we look to use it in a city street, we have some significant challenges then with services under the road. A lot of the places that people are using it, Hamilton, Auckland, Wellington, they use it in very, very rural areas where the services are in the burn.
Right.
So there's got to be swings and roundabouts.
Yeah. So
services. Yeah, we will if it makes really good sense.
Because you get a lot longer life, don't you? I mean, there's 50-year-old roads.
What they look at is the overall whole of life cost. Is it's slightly cheaper than
it's only slightly.
It's not massively.
I think it was about 13% over a 15-year life.
The other thing
is more expensive.
Okay.
The other thing to remember about the roads that we're building on here in Christchurch is we are, and a large chunk of us, we're building on swamps. So we need flexible roads that can move a little bit. But they've got this strength in them, otherwise it's just like. And honestly, I've driven down a road that has been like that, a concrete road that's been like that for, about 4 hours in Poland, I think.
Speed up when you approach it.
Just dunk, it was just, it was really. That's the M25. Yeah, no, it's going the wrong direction.
Yes, they definitely have a place and there's a use for it.
But bear in mind as well, Christchurch, we have a lot of springs under the road, and even in the hilly suburbs, we can get water running underneath the roads that scour it all out, that will just create a pivot point for a concrete slab. So this swings around about.
Whereas into the other surfaces, what do they breathe slightly better, for lack of a better word?
Flex.
They flex when the water, like if they get a bit of moisture in them.
Yeah, so like Pound Road, for instance, was one of those roads that was built on 200 millimetres of metal and then just tops on. And you think the amount of traffic that goes up a Pound Road by the airport.
And heavy traffic too.
And very heavy, yes, very vehicle route.
If you look at your roads that need rehabbing at the moment, when you do have, you know, a nice wavy pattern, if that was a concrete road, underneath that, you'd still have that wave.
Yeah.
Over time.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
That's the sort of problem.
Okay. What's the Tonbridge Street? Where's
on the Bridget?
Is that one of Bridget's ones?
Yeah.
So at the moment, they're not up for resurfacing.
Yeah.
One of them, I think Tonbridge was resurfaced in 2003, Rastrick 1989. But what I can do, having had a look at them, I can probably bring them forward to be resurfaced.
Yeah.
But at the moment, they were, you know, chip seal, 4-6 grade chip seal streets. I probably wouldn't use that again on them because they're only very, very limited widths and things like that. So the car's going to come out very tight turning circles. So you remember the product we used on Northcote Road? That was just painted in black.
Yeah.
I would use something similar to that to lock in what's existing surface. So I just fix the shape and then lock in what's existing. So
Northcote Road?
yeah. Was it North or Northwood?
Northwood.
Oh, you Northwood Boulevard. Yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, there's no issues with roughness, because it's one of the lowest roughness rated streets we have on Christchurch. Both of them are. It's only those brick speed hump kind of transitions where you get the bumps in them. So the rest of it will just be very minor, and I can just resurface it in a different.
Would you need some direction or something from us to do that, or is that so you can just manage that? Okay.
Yeah, that feedback's useful.
Yeah.
Okay.
So something that was raised with Jason and I at the Northwood residents.
Yeah, at their AGM.
At the AGM a few weeks ago, because it got asked last year as well, is end of Northwood Boulevard out to John's Road.
Yeah.
Because we own the land, are we looking to open that up? Never, or just
That
not?
would open when it went through this is subdivision through there. And I can, sorry, I better shut up on that because that's the back of my property.
Right.
But the end of Northwood Boulevard going through there.
By the preschool.
Yeah, at the moment it's not. There's not proposed to be an opening.
Because they didn't want it, the old association didn't want it when it was the motorway, but now that it's no longer State Highway 1 up there, they're like, oh, now when can we open up so we can get in and out quicker and going that way rather than driving right round.
I don't think there's not a plan for that in that section through that bit of by the thing, but there is a plan.
Because it's just stops.
I thought there was
next
a plan to open through the subdivision and out into the roundabout. In the future.
Yeah, so
when the property at the back there, the horse paddocks and the raspberry.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Trees. When that opens, I think that's what the plan is, but I'm not 100% over it.
Okay, so.
But no, we don't have any plans on our books to open up through to John's Road.
Okay.
And it's a reasonably low volume road that's going up there past the preschool, yeah.
But it would change if it was open, because people would come in that way back home and.
Yes,
rather
that's
than all the
exactly
way
right.
around.
Yeah.
But do we want to encourage that? Do we not want to encourage that?
We don't have any plans to do it.
So it would be community feedback, annual plan, LPP process.
Okay, so we'll stay quiet on it and just wait for them to make more noise and then.
Take it from there.
Okay.
And there's a lot of changes.
That's probably money that we'll spend anyway, if it's not really asked for.
Other priorities?
Can we just restrict Tonbridge?
Yeah.
So that was one of our board plan priorities around some of the traffic issues around there, not just the road renewal, but the last progress report was kind of saying we were going to wait and see if the speed limit changes made a difference. So we're assuming that that's not going to happen now.
So we are working on the ramifications of the new speed limit rule. And we'll come back to the board and report to you on that.
Because it's pretty horrendous around there.
Yeah, there's a whole load of issues that we're going to need to mop up and change post the new rule in terms of school speed limits and so on. Once we've done all of that, we'll then work through any new speed limit changes that we want to work through.
Steve's got a couple of slides on the safety stuff. If you want to, you can.
Oh, I don't even think about it.
You thought he'd do one. I'm going to talk about
4 minutes to go.
1 minute. Well, there's not a whole lot there.
No, there's just a couple of slides really.
So just from a traffic operations point of view, we've normally had 3 safety budgets: so minor road safety, school safety, and minor safety intervention. We've combined school safety with the minor road safety just to make it a bit simpler. Go to the next slide, please. So the minor road safety budget, this one is a data-driven programme. So it's all based on the pipeline development tool, high-risk intersections data, and yes, so it's endorsed by NZTA effectively. The school component, we assess ourselves and we prioritise that based on the criteria shown there. So we have a whole list of projects and then we just try and do the top ones and we keep them as data-driven projects. Just skip a couple of, or maybe skip, that shows our programme for the next few years. This programme's relatively rigid because it is data-driven. But the next programme we've got, which is the minor safety interventions, that's a relatively small budget, so you can probably skip a couple of slides now. One more, and again, I know it's gone too far. Anyway, there's another slide there that says minor safety interventions. That programme is all about community-driven projects. So because we get and we understand there's a lot of minor safety jobs out there that the community want and need that will never stack up from a crash history point of view or data point of view, but they're still important to the local residents. Examples might be a pedestrian refuge near a park. Having a pedestrian refuge there is going to make it much easier for children to cross to get to the park. But from a data-driven point of view, there's many other areas that would be more deserving of it. So we understand there is that need. So this area here, we build up a programme based on hybris, tickets, information, community board actions, feedback from councillors and community board members and members of the public. We pull all that together in a big list. So we have what we call an aspirational projects list, and then we prioritise it based on the stuff up there, so risk, accessibility, and so on. We're not against you guys swapping and changing that programme. So for your board, there's only a couple of items on that programme at the moment, but I think we're getting more money. So we're doubling the budgets. We will be able to do more. What I've said to the other boards, and I do the same with you, is once that other money's locked in and we've firmed up the programme, we'll get the engineer to come and present to you and say, these are 4 or 5 projects that you've got in your area. Do you want us to progress with these? Or are there other ones that you think are more important?
Do you leave a portion of that budget for kind of contingency flexibility? I mean, sometimes things will come to the board that we've never heard anything of. A resident will turn up to a public forum and say this is a really big safety issue, but it's never been on our radar. So is it firmly locking stuff into your program, or is there space to?
It depends on how far we are in the process. Right. If we've already done a design, got a contractor on board, it's locked in. But if we haven't done any of that, then we can change it. And if not, we'll just look at it the following year. Right. So it's an annual programme. So if it doesn't make it over the next couple of years, it can always go to the year after.
And I think the other thing is if we've got the design done, but we haven't locked a contractor in, then we're willing to have a conversation about, well, actually that could wait till, and you're happy to say that could wait till next year and we put this one in now because we think it's more important, then we can do that. But it does delay things.
Yeah. Because it's quite interesting sometimes when you've come up with things through high-risk tickets and that naturally the board actually don't know anything about, and we're kind of like, where did this project come from? Yeah. You never heard anything about it because you're looking at data that we're not.
And that's why it's important that we come to you and share the information we've got, and you might have insights that we're not aware of. And don't forget that by agreeing it together with the engineer at that stage, that's not necessarily saying it's going to get built. It's still got to go through the engagement process, and it still needs to go through the board for approvals. That's minor safety.
Great, thank you. I think is that all we've put on the list?
I'll just feed one thing back into that, because as one of the things Steve was alluding to there was kind of coming around having a chat with us. So we pretty much, obviously we've got this year's resurfacing stuff squared away. So what's more we've got in there, we'll get delivered. The stuff we've got initially draft for next year, and we're looking to try and bring as much forward as possible. So if I take a look at Tunbridge and Rastrick, and a clash test that they don't have any other works planned by anybody else digging up the roads, what I'll probably do is come back and have a chat with you anyway, because we don't just look to do 1 or 2 streets in an area. I'll try and maximise how much work we can do in that given area. So I'll come and have a chat with you about what other streets we might be able to do.
Anything comes up, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you.
would be good.
So that'll probably be over the next, well, before Christmas. I'll come around one afternoon, catch up for coffee or something.
Cool. Appreciate that. Thanks, guys, for coming in. There were not too many of us, but I feel like we got all our questions answered.
Main thing. When's Harewood Road come to council?
Harewood Road,
Yeah, December, isn't
the,
Sort of
Decision on 1 to 7.
that's coming as a, annual plan report on the 10th of December.
Okay, and
Sharon
then,
and I are,
so is that a decision that day?
that's a decision with regard to the draft annual plan.
Right, so when do work start? Because the money's in this year's budget.
Well, nothing starts until that decision's made as to what we're doing. That's the point.
But we're not making that decision next year annual plan, are we? Are you joking?
It's an annual plan decision.
But it's already in there for the lights to go on this year. So that's not happening, is it? Okay.
Look, the reality is if it's put into we get the decision about what's going into the draft annual plan, we've got a good steer from council as to what you're proposing for the annual plan. So we've got money now, we can get started.
Right.
Better chance if that decision is made
So on the 10th, the decision's
it's
made.
about to changes that, so there are amendments to the annual plan. To the draft annual plan.
Yeah, draft is the annual plan generally, but as you
But it
know.
gives us a good steer.
But when does that mean the traffic lights will go in at the intersection of Harewood and Garden?
It'll depend on how things are prioritised. So then we can go away and work that out.
Well, your recommendation's number 7, which I think will probably get through. So say 7 gets through.
I'm not sure at the moment. I'm hearing all sorts of things.
It's only one person voting. Not me, it's only, you know where I stand.
Yep.
But if it goes through.
Yep.
It's included, when do the lights get done? Because they're already in this year's budget to be delivered.
Some of the money is in this year's budget, yes, and some of it's included in Harewood Road and the Harewood Cycleway. So then we would get going on the scope of works for the then we'd get going on the scope of works for Harewood Road, for the works that have been approved down Harewood Road. So then we'd get on with it.
But do we get a date on?
You're not going to get a date from me today, because we would then need contractors on board before we know what dates are going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And if it's not done with the LCR, then section standalone, then it will need a redesign.
But that's what number 7 is.
Yeah. But we do need to do a little bit of redesign. We've got some stormwater issues down there that we've got to deal with.
Okay.
Right, 6:34.